In this video, I'm going to create a nighttime scene. This is going to be done in 3 parts. Part 1, which is this week, involves creating the scene itself. Among the things I'll be using is the noise filter, which I only used once in a previous video, and the diffuse filter for the first time. The diffuse filter will let me show a foggy nighttime effect, which is what I'm going to try to go for. I want to start with a new document, which you see here on the screen, and I've chosen letter and also the letter size. The first thing I want to do is to draw the ground. So I'm going to choose the pen tool and then just draw a ground like that. And we have to go all the way around and make sure that we tie it off, or else we're going to be in trouble. What's going to happen if you don't tie it off is that the color is going to bleed outside of it. And for the color, I'm going to, I settled on, I've tried this in several different colors, but I'm going to settle on 504 D5 and 2. Make sure it's the right one or we're going to be surprised. 504 D5 2 and press enter. And that's the color that we have. Okay, now I want to get rid of that. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a gradient. So I'm going to go over here to gradient. Okay, so I'm going to put a gradient in like that, and I want to make sure that, well, it's a linear gradient. It's all one color. I want one side to be a little lighter, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to color and I'm going to lighten it up a little bit like that. Now the darker part is supposed to be toward the right edge, and this isn't like that right now, but don't worry, because all we have to do is to click out of that, and down here it says reverse, and we can reverse our gradient. But we have to make sure the curve is selected. So go down here and press reverse, and it will reverse our gradient. So now I can fiddle with this and make it darker over here. The reason it has to be lighter over here is I'm going to have a pole light that's sitting there eventually. Okay, so that's that part. Now I want to make it look more like a ground. So I'm going to add some noise, and I'm going to go down here and click on filters, and then I'm going to add, well, actually I'm going to do diffuse first. It really doesn't matter what I do first. I'll use a diffuse filter, and then with the diffuse filter I'm going to give it an intensity of 10%. How do I know that? Because I've done this, and this is what I settled on. I'm going to have 10% diffuse filter. I am going to have a blend mode of darker color, and so my ground initially is going to look like this. Okay, then once I get done with that, I am going to add some noise. So I'm going to click on the filter again and add noise, and the noise will come up, and then I'm going to give it about an intensity of approximately 85%. Now the noise is what's going to give you your foggy ground effect. So between the diffuse filter, which gives you kind of a grainy thing up here, and then the noise, it's going to give us what we want. Then after doing that, I'm going to close out of that. I'll keep the blend mode at normal, and then I'm going to click on the ground again, because I don't want the opacity to be added to the noise or the diffusion. So I want to change the opacity, make it lighter until it's maybe about 80, and see how that looks. And then later on, when I add my light and all that stuff, it may not be exactly what I want, but that's okay. As a matter of fact, right now, I think I may change, let me see this. And we're going to click there, click over here, and then we are going to make it darker. I think I want something that looks more like that. But who knows what I'm going to come up with by the end. Okay, now we can close this group back up, and then we can call that ground to keep ourselves from getting confused. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is I want to add the sky. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add the sky. All we have to do is to do this. And so we have our sky, and again, I don't want an outline on the sky, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then when I do the sky, my sky color, I'm going to stick it in over here, and my sky color is going to be 618 AAD. 618 AAD, and then once we press enter, we'll see if it's the color we want. I'm going to use a gradient on the sky, so I need to click on, it's called the fill tool. Now I shouldn't be saying the gradient tool. That was what was true in Designer, but it's really called the fill tool. So whenever I say the gradient tool, that's what I mean. And the type of gradient I want is going to be radial, and that's because I want a lighter color down here. Remember, I'm going to put a light down there. A lamppost is actually what it's going to be. And so I want to move it to where it's down here and then fiddle around with it. I don't want it to be that obvious, so I'm going to put it down here and do like that, and then make it a little bit lighter and do that. And that will give an illuminated effect down here along with my ground. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to click out of that, and the sky layer needs to sit below, well, I'll label it first. This is sky. And the sky layer needs to sit below the ground, because the ground is going to be on top. So I'll select Control and bracket. Let's see if I remember which bracket it is. Control bracket. There we go. So that the ground is on top of the sky. And it has to be that way because what happens is, I think my ground, why do I have that? Why is it doing that? Oh, that's what's wrong. Okay, I've got to pull this down. No, I just want to select you, and then I want to pull you down. There we go. Okay, so the sky really needs to cover the entire back part. And make sure that it does, and make sure that your background isn't, the background document's not showing through. So now we have what we want. So let's check everything out and see what we have so far. We have the ground down here, and I think I'm going to make that ground a little bit lower. So I'll do that. And then I have my sky, and so I moved the sky under the layer. And now I need to make my sky have noise just like this. So I will select my sky, and then I'm going to go down here and go to Filter, and then Add Noise. And then the noise is going to be approximately 80%, more or less. And remember, we can always change our mind if we just really can't stand it. So there's the noise, and then I want to give it a blend mode. So I'm going to go down here and give it a blend mode of overlay. And I think that's about what I'm going for. I've got this light here, and I've got the noise effect so that it's got that foggy kind of effect. So that's what we have for the sky. Now I need to make my lamp. Let's move that. And so I think I'll change that to black. So I'm going to go over here, and in order to make my lamp, I need a rectangle, a trapezoid, and a rounded rectangle. So I'm going to click that, and I'm just going to put the shapes here. And it really doesn't matter. I know the rectangle is going to be longer, so I'll just do that. And and then I need a trapezoid, which is that, and I'll just draw one. And I need a rounded rectangle, which looks like that. So these are going to be the pieces of our lamp base. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to move it down. And it needs to be, these need to be on top. So we need to take the ground and make sure that we move it down underneath. Okay, so there we are. And this is going to be our lamp base, so I'm going to pull it down there and sit it around there and make it a little bit more narrow, like that. Pull it down, and then I'm going to pull this down and line it up, and then move that over that way, that over that way, and that's too tall. So I need to make this shorter and fatter. Then I'm going to take this and move it down until it lines up. And I have my snapping on so that I'm not like moving this thing all over the place. And this needs to be shorter, and it needs to go in. And if we have trouble resizing it, I can always make it bigger, which I will do that, so we can actually see what we're doing, because this has to move in. This has to move in. And then I think I'm going to move this down a little bit more. And let's click off of it to see what it looks like. It kind of looks like a bomb. So let's zoom back out and see if that's what I really want. And no, it isn't. I want this to be shorter. So I'm going to move that down, click off of it to see what it looks like. I want this to be shorter. And then click out of that, click on that. Whoops. And let's see if we have everything lined up. I think that's what I'm going to go with right there. So now we have the base, and I need to now add, since I have the size and the shape I want, I need to add them up. So I'm going to click on that one, and then add them all together. And in that way, if we add them up like that, then I can move the whole thing, and the other three parts won't come off. So I'm going to name that base, and then have my lamp base. This is a street lamp, in case you're wondering. I need a long neck on this street lamp. I'm going to move this down a little bit, like that. And then I'm going to go over here and get me a rectangle, and I'm going to have a long base. And on this one, I'm really going to have to zoom in, because to alter this and make it as thin as I want is going to be difficult. So I'm going to get the move tool, and I'm going to move it down so that it's there, but I want it to be pretty skinny. So I'm going to do that. And if you have a specific width that you want your lamp post to be, you can always go down here and just type it in. On the one I did before, I had a specific width, but I decided not to do that anymore. And so I have my lamp pole looking like that. And let's zoom out to see how the whole thing looks. I think I'm going to need to make it shorter. So I'm going to do that because what we're going to do is we're going to put a curvy thing on top. So now I have my lamp pole done, and we need to make the top of the lamp. So this for me was the hardest part. Originally I did a donut shape and then cut it in half and then converted to curves, but that was really, it didn't turn out very well. So I decided I was going to try to use the pen tool, and this one I really need to go in. Okay, in order to draw the top of our lamp, I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to just go here and go up to where the lamppost is going to be curvy, to where it stops like that, and then go up to where it's at its peak. Do that, and then go back down right across from this other one so that they're kind of, and then go down like that. And then I'm going to go over here and then go back up to this one and go up to that one and go down over here and then go down over here and then tie it off. So that's the initial part. It looks bad right now, but what I'm going to do is to click on the node tool, and then I'm going to make all these nodes rounded. See how they're all square? We don't want that. So I'm going to go click, 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 and click, 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 click again, and all the way around until, oh, that one needs to be, because we want a rounded edge. So I'm going to zoom in so I can resize this a little better, because this has to be the same width as that. So we're going to try to approximate this, and we're going to pull this one in. We are going to pull this one in, and we're going to use a combination of the nodes and the handles, oops, in order to make our lamp top as narrow as we want, like that. And we're going to click that in, and we're going to move that in. Let's see where the other handle is. Okay, I'm going to have to move this in to make it the width we want. Now let's click off of it because I can't see a thing. And so it looks like we have kind of sort of what we want. So I'm going to roll on up here, take this, and then I'm going to stick it up there on the top. So now we have our lamppost, and I can, let me see if I can make it a little bit wider. So I'm going to do that, and then move that out a little, click off, take that, move that out a little, and click off, and it looks like looks pretty good actually. Now let's zoom out and see what it looks like, and I think that looks pretty good. I think I'm not going to press my luck because this was the hardest part for me. And so now I need to add all the lamp parts together, so when we move them around we won't be in trouble. Okay, so we've selected all the lamp parts, and now we're going to add them all up. And you can do this as long as you don't have any, as long as it's going to be all one color and it doesn't have any lines, you can add them all up. So now we add them all up, and now there's our lamp. Presto. So we have our lamp. Now the next part I need is the part where I'm going to screw in the bulb. So to do that, I'm going to need a couple of parts. One, I need a triangle. And so there's that, and I'm just going to draw that in there like that. And then I need a rounded rectangle, so I'm just going to draw it like that. And then I want, and this right here is going to sit on top of that. Now I want this to be a separate unit because in the next video, I'll already tell you, I'm going to show you how to make a light bulb that shines, and we're going to be screwing it into that. So I'm going to select that and make it a little bit bigger than maybe it should be, and probably in the next video we'll be altering it a little bit. But I need to have some flared edges. So with this selected, I'm going to select Convert to Curves, and then I'm going to do that so that we've got the round node, and move that around, and then do that so we have a round node and move that around. And I want some flared edges on this. So let me click off of that and see how that looks. And I think I'm going to be doing this. Just flare it out a little bit. I want to be a little bit wider. And do that. And do that. And so then I can click off of that. And then with this, I just need to make it small enough to where it's going to sit on this. Like that. That holds the lamp holder. So that's what that does. So I want to click out of that and see if that looks reasonable. No, it doesn't. We need to pull that down more. And I need to pull this down more. Click out of that. And then I want to pull this over a little bit more. And we need to do that. I am not liking this. I think I'm going to just pull it farther in. Okay, that's okay. I don't want it to be too perfect. So now we have the piece where you're going to screw the light bulb in. Now what we need is we need to have the lamp cage. So I'm going to push the pen tool and give this a 1 point width. If it has a 0 point width, you're not going to be able to see it. Then I'm going to be drawing, actually I'm going to zoom in. It's always easier. I want to start here and then go down like that, and then over, and then up. So we have ourselves a little cage. Okay, so we have a little cage right there, and we don't want that. We don't want that black fill, so I'm going to click on that. And all we have left over is this, so I'm going to move this up to make sure that it's sort of centered. There. Let's click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. And that's good enough. And then I'm going to take the pen tool again and then go there and there. So now we have our cage where the light bulb is going to sit, and you'll see it lit from out there. So now with all this stuff, I'm going to take that. I'm holding down my control key, and then I'm selecting these layers that are part of the lamp, and then I am going to group them. So I'll right click and group. These you can't add together, because if you do that, then this piece right here is going to fill in. So sometimes you can add them up and sometimes you can't. Okay, now we have our lamp, and I can move it over here. And it should be obvious to you that is way too big. So all we have to do is just to resize it so that it doesn't look odd. And like that. And then move it over and click out of it and see what we have. Okay, I think that's what I'm going to stay with. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out, and we're going to, so we can get a better bead on things, and we're going to look at what we have. Now looking this over, so I can get a better beat on things. One thing that you notice is that we have this sky and we have the ground, and it's had noise applied and all that so that it looks kind of misty. But the lamp part doesn't exactly match that. So I'm going to select the lamp, and then I'm going to give it a diffuse effect. So I'll go down here to effects and then go to diffuse, and not a whole lot. I'm going to do about 1% and see how that looks. So I type 1 in and then I press enter, and maybe a little bit more. Let's see what happens. Ooh, that's not good. I think 2 probably looks good. Maybe 3. Okay, we'll do 3. Before I did 1, but to me right now it looks better if it's about 3%. Okay, so we did that with the lamp, and we need to also do that with this part too. So we're going to take the top of the lamp, the part that where the light bulb will screw in, and we're going to go diffuse, and we're going to turn that up. Nope. I think maybe 2 would be good for this. Let's say 2 and see how that looks. Okay, we'll go with 2. Okay, so there's your sky, there's your ground, and there's your lamp. Now I want to add some effects to the ground. So I'm going to use the pen tool and come over here and just draw some kind of a blob shape on the ground. And we'll close that off, and it's going to look like that. Okay, we do not want this outline, so we'll get rid of that, and we're going to go over here, and I want to use a base color of kind of an orangey effect. So I'm going to go over here, and the original base color I decided on was DD5210, and then press enter, and that's going to give me this pumpkin orange down here. Okay, now we obviously need some effects to make this look like something. So I'm going to add a gradient that's really going to be kind of an orangish yellow. Again, I changed my mind a lot on this one. So I'm going to go in here, and right now we have it to where it's, well, actually I'm kind of liking that, to where it's more orange on the left and lighter on the right. I did put some, let me see if I can always undo it. I'm going to put something in there, and maybe I'll do some yellowish tint to that. Oh, I'm not really fond of that one. So I think we might have to just change that back. Let me see. Maybe. Well, maybe not. I think I'm going to change that back to orange. I'm going to get off the sliders. I'll go down here and see what happens. Okay. I think I'm liking that one. Lighten it up a little bit. And okay, I'm going to stick with that one. We can always come back and change it if we want to. So I'm going to move this slider over. Come on. And do that like that. Okay, so I'm going to click off of that. That's going to be it for my gradient tool. Then I want to put, of course, a diffuse effect on it, because we want it to kind of meld into the ground. This is actually part of the ground, and it's going to be part of the light glow on it. I'm going to turn that up to maybe, ooh, that's too much, maybe 6% or so. So I'll have that with 6% or so, and then I don't know if I want to add a, ooh, that looks unfortunate. Darker color, linear, oh boy. Let's go through some of these and see what we have. Darken. I'm going to do darken on this one. I didn't do that before, so whatever. And then I'm going to add some opacity to the curve itself and not include the effect. So there's a difference between doing that. So I'm going to maybe adjust the opacity a little bit and see if we can't make this more realistic. I don't want it. Let me see. Let me click off of that and see how it looks. Huh. Okay. I'm going to leave it like that for now. And then I want to make a copy. So I'm going to make a copy of this one. And then I'm going to move it over a little. This, I think, is going to be in the back of our lamp. So I'm going to have to go Control and bracket. Where'd it go? Control and bracket until it gets behind the post like that. That's where I want it. And then I'm going to take this other one and move it behind the post. And then I'm going to choose the node tool and kind of make this a little bit more into the ground, and then choose that back there and make sure that we have all of our soft nodes and make this to where it's a little more into the ground like that until we get the arrangement the way we like it. I want this top one to not have any opacity on there so that you can't see underneath, and then maybe turn this around a little bit so this will kind of shoot out this way. Okay, so we have that. Now we can maybe there's something else I might want to do. Let's go to Pixel, and then let's choose the Warp Mesh tool and warp this a little bit so it looks more like it's on the ground and not really. So we'll warp it out a little bit like that. Okay, so now I think we've got, I think that's okay, well, for now, until I decide I'm going to change it again. Okay, so we have that, and now I want to draw another blob, and this blob is going to go over here, and I'm just going to do this, and go over here, and go here, and then do that, and then we're going to tie our blob off, and then this blob is going to be actually pretty close. It's going to be DD5210. So that's what it's going to look like. And I'm going to add a diffuse effect on it. So diffuse, and like that. Ooh. Okay, let me move that up. Okay. And then I'm going to use a blend to soft light. Let's see how soft light looks. Okay, so for whatever reason we don't want that. We want no bounding box. So Okay, so I'm going to change that to soft light and maybe make it a little bit there. So we'll fade in and maybe a little bit bigger, like that. Okay, this, I still don't like that. I am going to, what was it that, let's go back to diffuse. I think I'm going to diffuse this a little bit more. So you just have to adjust it to get it to where you want. Okay, now I need a bunch of leaves. I tried drawing the leaves because I drew them for my Christmas poinsettia. And when I tried drawing the leaves for this, it really didn't work out too well. I gave up on it, and then I decided just to go to Pixabay and get some. So I'm going to go to File and Place and go over here to these leaves that I got from Pixabay. I think in the future, for future projects, I'm going to make me a couple of leaves, or bunches of leaves of different types, and just store them, because and then I can use them in the future. Okay, now my leaves, why did it go? Oh, I want them on the top. Make sure my leaves are on the top because we're going to move them around later. Now I've got one bunch of leaves, and I'm just going to go Control J, 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 and now we've got a bunch of copies that we can move around. I'm going to move one over there, and I'm going to move one down here, and I'm going to move one over here, and so on, until I think I'm going to put another bunch here. So we've got the leaves that are sitting around the lamp. Okay, now what we can do is to make these look a little more realistic. Right now they look just like a bunch of copies that I put down there. So one thing we can do is I can select this leaf, and I can go over to my pixel layer, my pixel studio rather, and I can select the mesh warp tool and pull those leaves out so they look more like they're lying on the ground. Okay, so I can do that. And then I can do the same thing with these over here, get the mesh warp tool and pull this down to where it looks like it's lying on the ground, and then do the same, or maybe I can just turn them and see how that looks. So it doesn't. So I'll select that one, use the mesh warp tool, and pull them to where they look like they're lying on the ground, and so on. So using the mesh warp tool, it makes it look a little bit more realistic and not like, you know, somebody's just put a sticky of leaves there. So we'll make it look like they're lying on the ground like that, and then we can do the same for these. So I'll put these over there, the mesh warp tool, and make them look like they're lying on the ground like that. Okay, now if you want just one leaf, then what I did was I just made another copy, and then I moved that up like that, and then I went and got the eraser tool over here. Remember, you have to be in the Pixel Studio to do this, and I just started like erasing some of the leaves off like that, and now it looks like we only have one green leaf like that, and your assistant is going to tell you that you now have a new pixel layer, a new mask layer, and that's fine. That's what's supposed to happen. So erase that off, and then I got it to where it looked like that. So we have our leaves. Another thing it might be a good idea to do is to maybe change the opacity on the leaves so they blend in a little bit more like that. And then over here again. There, like that, and just make adjustments to where it doesn't look like you just took a sticker of a leaf and just put it there. That's what you want to avoid. So they need to really blend in. That's not the one I wanted. Let's see if I can find it. I don't want that one. Okay. Where did my other leaf go? Okay, I'll do this one. And then I will make it to where it's a little bit blending in. And you kind of get the idea. So that's how you're going to do that. And then just fiddle around with it if you're doing your own to see to the point where you can kind of see how this is supposed to look. Now, I need to add a shadow for the lamp. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to the pen tool again. So we need to be in the Vector Studio. Get the pen tool and just draw the shadow out like that. Well, down like that, down like that, and up like that, and close it off like that. And obviously that shadow is not supposed to be orange. It's not supposed to have a black line on it, so we're going to get rid of that, and then we're going to choose black. Okay, black shadow, you're going to have to do a combination of two things. Diffuse it so that it looks more like a shadow and not like a drawing. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to select diffuse, and then we're going to move the diffuse tool until it looks like more like a shadow, like that. Now I'm on the fence to whether, well, let's try, I'm on the fence to whether I really need a gradient tool for this one. I try it different ways both times, but I really kind of like it diffuse. So let's go through some of these. Well, these blending modes really don't work on the black one, so we'll just keep it on normal, and then we'll just maybe diffuse it maybe about, I don't know, 14% seems a bit much. So we will do about that, and that should be okay. And so now we have our diffuse effect on our shadow, and we can go up here and see if the opacity will make it look a little bit better. Yeah, I think it does. Just a little bit, not much. And then let's see if it really looks like a shadow. So I think it does. I pretty much do. One thing we probably can do, this might be overkill, is to try to put a gradient on this. And then we have a linear gradient like that. And we can move it like that, move it like that, to where, let me see. We need to reverse this because, let me see, that might be what I'm looking up for. Okay, let's click off of that and see what it looks like. Yeah, I think so, because it's supposed to be darker here, and then as it diffuses out, it's supposed to be a little bit lighter. So I think we're going to keep it like that. Now I'm going to bring in a tree. So we have File in Place, and I have this tree. This tree, I made this for one of my Halloween things that I did. So I'm going to take this tree, and it gets stuck back here. It's going to be out in the distance. There we go. And the tree looks a little bit odd sitting there. So I want to give this tree a diffuse effect. Not a whole lot, about 6%. That's what I started with, and then I adjusted it. So now we have a diffuse effect. And I also want to give the tree itself, so let's get out of this and select the tree, not the effect, and I want to give it an opacity of about 50%. So we're going to make it really fade away in the distance, and that's what it's supposed to look like. Okay, now what I want is, well, this shadow on the lamp, I'm kind of, okay, let me go back in here. Let me go back on Diffuse. And maybe let's try another blend mode. Oof. Pin light. Does that pin light even matter? Okay, there's pin light. And well, we have pin light, and then we have normal. I don't see the difference, so we're going to stick with that. Okay. Okay, now I've got my tree in, and the last thing I'm going to do is I want to add a darker piece of ground in the front somewhere. So I want to use a pen tool again, and then maybe just draw a piece of ground up here, a blob. Like that. And we're going to have to get out of that. Again, we don't want an outline, but we do want it to be black, like that. And then I'm going to go in and add a diffuse effect. You see a theme here. And I'm going to turn it up, because now we have a ground that looks more like a ground and not like a thing that I just drew. So now I want, well, let me see. I think 16 is good enough. Let's see what all these blend modes are for. Vivid light. I don't see anything that even lighten, darker color, linear burn. No, not really. Do I even have it selected? I don't think I do. Okay, let's turn this up again. And anything we want here? Not really. I keep turning it back. Okay, I'm just going to keep it like that because I just wanted another piece of dark right there. So the light will be obviously lighting up this part. And this shadow looks a little crummy, but I'm going to keep it that way. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do is we need a moon, because what nighttime thing doesn't need a moon? So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select this circle and then go Shift and draw our moon. And this isn't going to be a black moon. We're going to pick some moon type color for this. So I'm going to need swatches. Moon. Moon. Looks more like the sun, to be perfectly honest. Okay. Okay, so I think we are going to, I need my sliders. Okay, so I think there's our moon right there. So there's our moon, and I'm going to need to make another copy of the moon. So I'm going to go Control J. So now I have two copies of the moon. And this copy, the one underneath, is going to be bigger. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key and make it bigger and move it into position like that. And so the little moon is on the top and the big moon is on the bottom. And what we're going to do with the big moon is we are going to go to FX And we are going to go down to Gaussian blur and blur our moon. Like that. So that it's got a glow behind it. Okay, now, since we have that, close. Now we can lighten the opacity. There we go, because we want to see, this is just the glow, but we want to really see the moon. So now we have that. We could have a little fun with this and maybe make it a little more orange. But let's see what happens if I do that. I'm not real sure. Okay. Well, okay, we'll leave it like that. And then the inner moon, I also want to put a Gaussian effect on that. So I'm just going to copy this right there. And then I'm going to open this Gaussian effect. And I'm going to take down, I just want it to glow a little bit on the end. I don't want it to be that much. I don't want to take it down too much. Let's see what it looks like. The problem is it's surrounded and I can't see really what it looks like. So I'm going to have to close it. And no, I need it to blur more. So I'm going to have it blur more like that. Okay. And then I want to go down to this one and then maybe get this to blur more. So now we have our moon that is really bright in the sky, and it's kind of blurring around the edges because this is supposed to be a foggy night type of thing. Okay, so this is where I usually wrap up the video, but we're not done. We have 2 more weeks to finish this scene. To see what I'm going to add, make sure you like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you can see what's next for our scene.